Hi guys, this is Meenu. Welcome back to my channel Storytale. Today we are going to be talking about Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. It is one of the best books that I've read this year, so I'm really eager to talk about it. I'm going to keep it spoiler free because I do not want to ruin it for you guys, but I really want you guys to pick this book up because this is just amazing. I'm telling you at the start because that is how much I love that book. Before I get into my like and dislike section, of course I would like to tell you a little bit about the synopsis. If you have read Ramayana, then you must know about Kaikeyi. She is one of the most popular character of Ramayana. She was one of the stepmother of Ram, and because of her, Ram was sent to Vanvas for 14 years. Kaikeyi has always been shown as one of the villainous character. She is supposed to be cruel and wicked, and she was always in influence of Manthara. And because of Manthara's influence, Kaikeyi asked Dashrath to send Ram for 14 years of Vanvas against two of the boons that she received when she saved Dashrath's life in a battle. When I read Ramayana, or one of the adaptation that I read, and even the one that I saw in TVs, no one have actually delved more into Kaikeyi, her as a character. She has mostly been shown as the wicked stepmother. That was all about her. I mean, of course, if she has saved Dashrath's life and that is where she got her boons, then she must have been a great warrior to actually have been able to save Dashrath. Of course, there are many versions and adaptations of Ramayana, so I'm not so sure which one is true and which one is not. I mean, of course, I'm not a pandit or something who knows about this. I know whatever I've seen and whatever I've read in school. So of course I'm not going to comment on Ramayana and its epic because of course I do not want people to come after me, because if I say one little wrong thing about it, I'm going to be screwed. So of course that is not something I want to do. I do not want to comment on Ramayana, its story, its character, because again, like I said, people will come after me because people get offended very fast, at least in this age. But anyway, I do not want to delve into that. I want to talk about this book, Kaikeyi as a character, which is based on this book. In this book, we get the point of view of Kaikeyi from her childhood to, I think, when she sent Ram to Vanvas. We get to see her journey, we get to see her story, how she became the warrior queen, how did she save Dashrath's life, how did she got those two boons, why did she send Ram to Vanvas. Everything we get in this book. For most of the part, this adaptation is one of the best adaptations that I have read. I really like this version of Kaikeyi. I really loved her journey. I'm going to say a little bit that this book is going to raise a lot of questions. If someone has read it, then they might get offended because of the changes that it has made. And if someone has not read the epic before, then they might get confused in certain aspects. Or maybe they will not be able to connect with Kaikeyi and the other supporting characters as much as someone who actually did. You have to be very much open-minded to actually read this book because of course this adaptation has taken many liberties. So you have to keep that in mind. You have to keep your mind open because the author has given the disclaimer that this is a work of fiction. It has been adapted from the original material, but it has nothing to do with it. It is not commenting on anything or everything. She has taken few of the source material from different versions of Ramayana. So that is where she got her source. But other than that, this is totally a creation of her own fiction. That is all. Vaishnavi as a debut writer, I think she has done an amazing job. This is a very engaging book. From page 1 till the last, it is fast paced. I did not feel bored for even a single second. It is very well written book. And for a debut, I think she has written much better than most of the established writers that I know. She has done just an amazing job. Now without wasting any more time, let's see what I like about this one and what I did not like. The very best thing about the book is the story itself. I think it was really engaging. I did not feel bored for even a single second in this book. The adaptation, yes, it has taken a lot of liberties, but I think it was a very good adaptation. Most of the thing in this book actually makes sense. What is the motivation of certain character did make sense on so many levels, except for the Ravan part. I think that did not make sense to me at all, but I will get to that later in the video. But I think the way that we have handled Kaikeyi here is very well. To be honest, I thought Mantra will play a major role in this book, but she did not. She was just the caretaker and she loved Kaikeyi very much. She did give her advice from time to time, but she was not the major influence in her life. In this book, we did not just get the part where Kaikeyi sends Ram to Vanvas. That was one of the smallest aspect of this book. Of course, we are led to it, but that is not the only part that we get. We get story of Kaikeyi since she was a little kid until the day she made that decision and everyone actually went against her and everything. So we get to know her story from that. I really loved that we get to show her culture and everything. I really loved that we also talked about food and the clothes in this book. I think that was very interesting part. We also get to see her culture. There are certain things which is different in her culture, and the certain things are different in Dashrath's kingdom. We also see how she was mistreated as a woman, how her mother was exiled because she was a woman and she was doing something that the Raja did not like. I also love that we got to see her relationship with other characters too, especially with her brother. I think her bonding with her brother was the best part of this book. I really loved both of their relationship. I also loved how the other characters were shown, especially Sumitra and Kaushalya. I really loved that they did talk about women empowerment and they were very strong women. I also loved certain scenes of Dashrath. He was not a perfect man, we get to see that. But anyway, I really loved most of his scenes too. But the book, of course, gets very much interesting when Ram enters in the story. I really loved his character and how there are certain aspects of his character that we get to see which is very different from Ramayana. So of course that is the part where I think people will get most offended, because it is not as perfect as that we have seen or read in the books or in the TV shows. It is a flawed character and we get to see that, and I'm pretty sure people are gonna be very much offended by that. But of course we have to keep in mind that this is a work of fiction, so I don't think that you should take it too seriously. There are also other characters of Lakshman and Bharat. We also get to see both of their point of views too, how it is very different from what we see or what we have read. And one common thing that we do see in Ramayana and in this version, that Shatrughan is missing in the most of the part. We are also introduced to Ravan in this book, but of course he is very different from the version that we have read. The one thing that is common is that Ravan was one of the most intelligent people. Even in Ramayana, he was shown as one of the brilliant man, and even in this version, we get to see that. But of course, there are other things about him that I did not agree with. There's certain motivation that he has that I did not agree with. I think that was way too far. That was like taking too much liberty with the character. So that was the one part that I did not agree with, not his motivation. There's also a part where Bharat curses Kaikeyi that nobody is gonna be her namesake in this world, in the future world, and which is, I think, is very much true, because I do not know anyone who is named Kaikeyi. It is one of those names that is never gonna be named. I think like Gabbar or something. But anyway, there are also references of the original epic we get to see in this book, and some of them actually does make sense. So if you're gonna read it, you're gonna know how amazing this book is. So the second best thing about the book is the character of Kaikeyi herself. She is an amazing and very interesting character. At least this version we get to see her point of view, what actually happened, what is the reason that she actually sent Ram away for 14 years. What was her motivation? What are the struggles that she had to face? Of course, this is a fictional story, so we do not actually know what is the original story of Kaikeyi. We did not get that much of her backstory in Ramayana, at least not the ones that I have read or the seen. But whatever version that we get in this book, I think it was done very well. Her struggle ever since she was a little kid, that she had to get married when she was very young, and she did not want to get married, but she had to, because that is one of the duty that has to be fulfilled by a woman. And after she gets married, her life does get a little bit better, but still she has to struggle for a lot of things, because there are so many people in this world who actually put women down. They do not want them to success. They do not want to have a voice. They do not want them to, being able to do anything on herself. They just want them to take care of the kids. They just want them to take care of the household. That is all. So of course, those are the things that she has to fight through. She became this warrior queen. She actually went to battle and saved Dashrath. So those are the parts that made her a very big of a badass. She also did not want to take credit for saving her husband's life, because she thought that this is gonna be, taken as a very bad thing, because again, she's a woman. She's not supposed to do certain thing. The husband is supposed to save her. She is not supposed to save the husband. So those are some of the examples of how women were actually seen in that era. I mean, it's not that much different from this era, to be honest. I mean, we have come a very far way, but we still have a very long way to go. But anyway, let's get back to the book. Even the way that she has inspired the kingdom, how women were actually looking up to her, how she saw as this queen who was like badass, who was like fearless, who is, was defying the gods. She was doing what a woman was not supposed to in that era, and she is just excelling at everything. She eventually became the advisor. She was the most trusted person of the king. So of course she was someone to look up to, because as a woman she achieved a lot. Of course what she achieved was not without consequences or backlashes. Many people were actually against her. Many people were trying to throw her away, and even there was an attempt to her life by someone very close to her. I'm not gonna reveal who, but so of course, like I said, she had to face many struggles. The only person who understand her a little bit was Yudhijit, but again he was too very much bound by everything, by his responsibility as the man of the house, as the future king. So of course he cannot do much for his sister too, but of course he had the regrets, but again he cannot do much because he too had responsibility. He too had to follow certain duties to the kingdom. The relationship that Kaikeyi has with Yudhijit, I think, was very well written, like I said before. From the beginning of the book till the last, we get to see their relationship develop. Of course, there were many ups and downs in their relationship because they had to fill at very different roles. But still, their love for each other was never diminished. I also loved her relationship with her sisters, or Sautan, whatever you want to say, with Sumitra and Kaushalya. That was very endearing too. Even with Dashrath, whom she admitted that she did not actually love, but she did find a friend in him, because of course she did not have much of a choice. But anyway, she did find a friend in him, even though she never actually been able to love him. So I really love that too, that we are not forced into a love story which did not exist. I also loved her bonding with Ram, and how she is trying to teach him many things, and how when he does something wrong, she actually feels it in a way, and she does have an unconditional love for him, but she cannot actually ignore all the wrong things that he does. This is a Kaikeyi story, and you can feel it. Everything that has happened in this book is because of her, to her, in spite of her, by her. Everything is just her story, and I really love that. The third best thing that we see in this book is women's struggle and empowerment. There are many struggles that a woman has to face in the society even today, and in that era it was much worse. Kaikeyi was forced to marry Dashrath even though she did not want to. She did ask for a swayamvar, but she did not get that too. After she got married, many people did not like her that much because she was finding it really hard to adjust in a culture or in a place where she does not know anything about. So many people did think that she have an attitude. Whenever she tries to voice something, she has always been thought as wicked, as someone who does not have any culture or manners. There are many times in this book where you can see her real struggle. Many people are actually saying things to her face, but she cannot actually say anything against it, because these are basically Rishi or the sage, as mentioned in the book, and they are trying to teach her that what are the basic duties of a woman. Even Ram's tutor was against women having any powers, so he would teach many bad things about women, or he would teach Ram what are the basic duties, or what is something that a woman should do, and that is what Ram has been learning ever since he was a little kid. There's also a story of Ahalya and her husband, and how she was punished for something that was not actually her mistake. How Indra, because he was a man, he was actually very easily forgiven, and how Ahalya, who was a woman, was not easily done so. Even though it was not actually her mistake, she did not know anything about it. Of course, I do not know much about the source material or what actually happened, but what I'm referencing is because what is written in this book. I have of course heard a little bit story of Ahalya and her husband, and even then I thought it was a little bit wrong, because of course she was turned into a stone because of something that was not her fault. And of course I do not know the whole story, so I could not comment. I still cannot comment about it, because like I said, people will run after me with torches and everything, so I do not want that. But with her example, we get to see how everything was actually wrong for women in that era. There are also other examples of how women were actually suppressed. But with the reign of Dashrath, Kaikeyi did have many liberties that she did not have when she was, in her Maika or when she was in her native place. But she was struggling much more there. Even her mother was exiled because she tried to raise a voice against her husband. So like I said, there are many struggles that we see, but there are also empowerment that we see in this book too, especially the scene where Kaikeyi actually goes to the battlefield to save Dashrath, how she eventually made her place in the court, how she actually became the most trusted advisor of Dashrath. But again, we get to see her downfall when Dashrath was forced to send Ram away. But then again, we get to see her rise. So we get to see many ups and downs. We get to see many struggles. So like I said, overall this book is about women, for women. I think this book, I think every woman should read, because it is talking a lot about the struggle, a lot about the empowerment, and I think this is a must read for at least all the women or all the feminists out there. Now let's talk about certain issues that I have with this book. I do not have any major issues. This is just me nitpicking certain things. There's something that bothered me a little bit, not that much. It was not a big deal breaker or something. It just bothered me just a little bit. I think there are certain liberties that has been taken when it comes to this book, especially when it comes to Ravan. I really like that he was shown as the brilliant man in this book. He was this inventor who invents things. He was very brilliant and everything. But still there are certain relationships that we talk about in this book. There's a reveal in this book, a very big reveal that is supposed to make sense of what he did in the future. But for me, it did not make any sense. I think that was a very long shot, and it also did not make any sense to his character or his motivation, especially because he went to a certain place to do something. Like I said, I cannot talk about it, but that decision or that motivation did not make any sense to me. And also the meeting of Kaikeyi and Ravan did seem a little bit off to me. I think it was a little bit forced, because we just wanted an introduction of Ravan, that is all. There's also a factor of Kaikeyi's magic, which did not play any role in this book. It was talked a lot about in this book, but it did not play a major role for me. If that would have played a major role in her decision to actually send Ram away, I would have understood it, but it did not play that role, because of course she had 2 boons, so she did not actually need it. The magic did not do anything for her, and it did not do anything for me in this book too. Magic was also very inconsistent in this book. That was one of the errors too. I think the people who have read Ramayana may take a little bit offense with this book, because of course this book has taken a lot of liberties. The character's motivation, the character influences, what character does, certain character which has been shown in a very different light and who is one of the beloved characters. I think people are gonna get offended. If this book would have majorly published in India, I think it would have had many backlashes. Not because this is a bad book or it is poorly written, but because it is derived from one of the most loved epics, and many people do get offended by it when they try to do something a little bit different about it. And especially, like I said, one of the major character has been shown in a very different light. So many people may not like it. They may think that they are actually villainizing a certain hero. So again, like I said, people have to be very open-minded to actually get through this book, because even though author has mentioned that this is a work of fiction, many people will not believe it, because we have been grown up reading Ramayana. We have seen Ramayana ever since we were a little kid. Every Sunday we have seen Ramayana on television. We have loved Ramayana. We have loved all the characters, and we have made certain perceptions about different characters. For us, Kaikeyi has always been this evil stepmother who has sent Ram and his wife and even his brother to 14 years of Vanvas. So she has always been this evil stepmother who did not have any of the backstory. The only reason that she sent Ram away was because she wanted her own son to become the king. That is all we know about Kaikeyi. That is all we have read or seen ever since we were a little kid. And of course, this book has tried to be very different. They have tried to give her a backstory. I think many people were okay when Maleficent got a redemption arc, but I think many people will not be okay when Kaikeyi got one too. But anyway, if you appreciate this book as much as I do, if you love this book as much as I do let me know in the comments down below. I would love to know your thoughts. For me, this was an amazing read. I really loved it. I loved everything about it. Maybe a little bit here and there was a little bit hit and misses. But anyway, for me, this was an amazing read. I really loved it. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the motivation. Yes, there were a little liberties taken in this book, especially certain characters and everything. But still, I was totally hooked to the story. I was totally hooked to the character. That is why I'm going to give this book 4.5 stars. So that was my review of Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. My review was all about the book. I did not have any intention to comment on the original source material of Ramayana or its characters. I'm really looking forward to all your comments on this book. I will see you next time. Have a great day.